Hi guys, thanks for signing in. Hope you found the Padlet board last week useful. I'm just going to turn my background music down a tiny bit, hopefully that's not distorting too much. Okay, so we're on our final remote session of the module. Thanks for sticking with us, and I appreciate your patience as well, because it's quite messy setting up these digital resources. It's much easier just walking into your classroom with your presentation and going, but I have to do a little bit of tweaking, and university systems are sluggish at the best at the moment because there's not many people remoting in, but hopefully you'll all get on okay. Okay, so just to summarise, last week we had a quick icebreaker. One of you was brave enough to post an answer. So the icebreaker was: a woman watched her husband plunge headfirst down a deep ravine. She returned home to find him in the kitchen chopping onions. How was this possible? Somebody was brave enough to say he was doing a bungee jump. One of the answers I do have written down is he was on TV. He was like a stuntman in a movie or something. But they were the best that we got. So thanks for having a go. Okay, so a quick recap from last week. We explored the concept of risk in projects. We understood the requirements for project risk management. We described a typical risk management process, and we discussed risk from the professional responsibilities perspective. And this was the end of the theory side of the module from weeks 1 to 9. We now move into the second assignment, which is more independent. It's about yourselves getting together collaboratively and doing the second assignment. So I hope you like the Padlet board. It's a new tool. I've never really used it much in the past, but I thought it was a good way of having things centrally stored. Very impressed with the contributions to the 3 tasks. It's great to see, and just having simple, even if it's just a photograph of your notepad, it just shows that you've engaged. It's great for your employees as well. One of your, I won't name any names, someone from your organisation contacted me earlier in the week to ask me if you were contributing to the lessons and doing your work independently. I explained that I've had several emails from many of you, but what is impressive is this board shows interaction, so thank you for doing that. By all means, leave any feedback and comments. Click on those thumbs up, thumbs down, post any additional comments. There's a question and answer section at the bottom right hand side that you can post any questions in there, and I'll try and engage with this. I'll have a look at some of the work that you've done, but it's good to see, and hopefully you've found this a little bit more useful than just presentation slides. Okay. So this week is all about the group presentation and assessment 2, and it's a difficult one, not just because we're all working remotely, and to do a group presentation implies that you're all going to be as a group at the front of the classroom presenting out via a PowerPoint. That is not possible with our current situation, so we're all going to adapt. Okay, so session 10 is all about the group presentation, and the actual learning outcome for this assignment is to interpret project requirements and point out appropriate legal frameworks that impact upon corporate social responsibilities and governance requirements. So it's a tough title. It's a real challenging group presentation, this. Okay, so what we're going to look at is we're going to understand what are the assignment requirements, become familiar with the assessment criteria, and this is available on Blackboard, so you can download this, print it off, have a good look at it, and undertake some initial research to identify a suitable project to focus upon. So, as you know, it's group work, and this does present a challenge in the current environment. Thank you for everyone who posted their teams on Blackboard and for explaining how you intend to collaborate. I'm looking at the apps like House Party, Facebook Messenger, Facebook FaceTime, maybe Zoom. Zoom seems really popular. My wife was using Zoom to do a Slimming World meeting last night. The things that people are doing now. There's also a virtual pub in Zoom where people are all opening cans of lager, glasses of wine, and chatting as they would as if they were in the pub. It doesn't quite seem the same for me, but just goes to show that under these circumstances we can work remotely. So the challenge for you is, how are you going to collaborate? How are you going to share information to produce this piece of work? Okay, it's worth 40% of the module, so it's a big chunk. I'm nearly there with your assignments. Apologies that there's a little glitch on the system, and 1 or 2 people got temporary marks that came up in Turnitin, and that shouldn't have happened. I don't know why, but at the moment I'm probably 90% through the marking. It's actually with Charles as well. He has to second mark them as well before we can issue the grades. Hopefully early next week. Charles is off this week, he's having some leave. Early next week Charles will have seen the sample of work that he requires, and you'll get your work. But what I've seen so far is very good. There's been no issues, nobody's failed today. I'm very happy, some very good pieces of work. So please bear with me, that will be with you as soon as possible. But just be aware that this is worth 40%, so you need to have a good go at this assignment. Okay, so all members must take part, and what I suggest you do in this scenario is you produce your presentation. Ideally you should all have a go at presenting in the format, whatever format we decide to do it in. But I also recommend that you all produce at least an A4 or 2 sheets of paper of notes, and what I'm going to ask you to do is submit those notes separately to your presentation, and that way I can see not only the presentation in your voice, I can also see the preparation that you've made with your notes and your deeper understanding and stuff, and that will contribute to your marks as well. Okay, it has to be 30 minutes. Now the way I'm thinking at the moment is we'll use something like Microsoft Teams or Zoom and actually record the presentations remotely. So what you can do, and this is the challenge for you as a team to figure out the best solution, is that one person could have the presentation on their computer and share that screen with everybody else, and then between you all do your slides over the top, almost commentate. But what you can do, software like Microsoft Teams allows you to record the actual session, and then it produces you a video. So what I'm proposing is we do that, we actually record the presentations on a video platform, all contribute, and then at the end we submit a video file. The other alternative is I actually sit and watch them in those sessions. So you open up Zoom or Teams, I sit in the audience and actually watch it that way. But if we record it as well, we've got evidence as well for the moderation process later on down the line. The deadline is the 30th of April, so that gives us a month. And there's no more teaching in this module now. This is all down to yourself for the next 4 weeks. I know there's Easter in between, so obviously you've got to make it work best you can. But it's up to you now to contribute individually to this group project and then logistically record it. Okay, and as I was just saying there, 30th of April. The difficult part is working out how best to do it, but I think that adds to the challenge, and that will be taken into consideration when we mark the work as well, how much effort you put into making sure it works. Okay, so this group project requires you to study an actual project and prepare a 30-minute presentation on the legal frameworks, can't speak, frameworks that the project operates within, and how might impact upon corporate social responsibility and governance requirements of this project. So it's a real mouthful this, so you need to look at individual sections. What is governance requirements? What is social responsibility? Look at legal frameworks. So you need to do a really bit of study and dig deep into this area to come up with a suitable presentation on this topic. It isn't easy, it's not intended to be easy, it's a bit of a challenge, this one. Just to find the information alone it's a challenge, let alone producing the presentation and then delivering it with the current constraints that we've got. Okay, so this is your marking grid, and this is available on Blackboard. So you've got obviously 20% of the mark is for a good introduction. Okay, I won't go into each of the individual boxes. You can do that in your own time and get familiar with it. The main part of your presentation is worth 40%, and there's 20% for the summary and conclusions and 20% for the quality of the presentation. Now I do understand that we may have issues with broadband and connectivity issues, and we're working remotely. I just want to see an effort and a commitment for you to try and do this the best you can, and obviously if there's any glitches on the systems and things, I'll take them into consideration. But it's a real team effort, so you need to decide who's going to do what. Maybe you're going to split it. One or two of you might do the introduction, maybe one or two of you do the bit in the middle, one or two of you do the summary, or one of you develop the actual slides and the video clips or whatever else, the transitions. But collectively as a team you all need to contribute to this project in some shape or form, and make a note of who's doing what, because I can use that when it comes to the actual marking system. Okay, so a group factor. So once the grade for the presentation has been determined, each student will get a percentage of this based upon their involvement. If it is clear that a student has been involved in the preparation of materials and the delivery of the presentation, then they will get the full mark. If evidence of their participation is weak, then the mark will be reduced compared to their team members. So I want you all to contribute. Now, understandably, there may be people self-isolating, there may be people unwell, it may be difficult in the household with children and various other distractions, but I'll take all of that into consideration, and I don't want anyone to be anxious and alarmed by this. just have a good go and try your best to contribute towards this assignment. And if everyone can contribute in some shape or form and provide evidence, so I'm thinking that sheet of A4 that has your notes on it, if that sheet of A4, if you're the person that's going to be doing the logistics and the slides and the video recording and etc., as long as there's some reference to it there and your team are all happy with that, then I'm more than happy to go with that. I may even put a few comment boxes on the Padlet board that I'm going to create to attach to this presentation, and we can work on it that way. Okay. So your big challenge is that as a team you need to find a project that is in the public domain and there's plenty of access to information. It's complex enough to warrant a 30-minute presentation without having a project that's got lots of information available. So you need to pick something that's big. You know, something like the Wembley Stadium's a very well publicised one. Have a look on the APM's website and see the sort of project examples that they post. Okay, has to have some clear and obvious CSR stroke legal contexts. So obviously there's been some sort of legal case, libel cases or something associated to it, and it has scope for some independent analysis by you. So it'd be nice if you actually put your opinion on the project on there, what you believe has happened in that context. That just gives it a personal touch. Okay, so once you've decided on a potential project to use as your case study, you now need to decide how as a team you plan to develop the presentation. Okay, how are you going to develop it and how are you going to deliver it remotely? And I can support you with this. I can give you lots and lots of advice and guidance. A typical example, Charles, myself and one of my colleagues had a Microsoft Teams meeting. You all have access to Microsoft Teams with your university accounts, so you can, with the Office 365, use Microsoft Teams. We set up the presentation slides and then we all had our video cameras turned off but our voices available, and Charles spoke through the certain slides and they also recorded it. So while we were talking, it was actually recording it in the background, and at the end of the meeting it gives us a nice video file that we can then use as evidence if we want to refer back to that meeting. That'll be one way to do it. There is other products like Microsoft Teams and various other things you can use, but discuss it with yourselves, and if you're really stuck, come back to me and I can maybe even do a video where it explains how to use Microsoft Teams. I do have a really good YouTube video that's been used by a teacher in a secondary school, which I thought was really good. I may copy that link to you and then you can have a look at that and see if that gives you any ideas. Okay, so ideas for case studies. Obviously you could look at Brexit, you could even look at COVID-19 and how the government are dealing with that, although there probably isn't a lot of literature available at the moment. It might be more kind of a personal observation. The Hinkley Point Moorside nuclear power stations, HS2 and its phases and development. You could do a narrower focus looking at something like Deepwater Horizon and the clean-up process. The Crossrail project, looking at driverless vehicles, or even narrow it down further, looking at something like flood defences in a town. I think this was sort of initially looking at sort of Carlisle, for example. There's a lot of issues with flooding in Carlisle recently. Or even a project such as bringing something like Primark to Barrow. So it's very, very broad. You may want to look at Barrow football and the ramifications if they don't get promotion to the Football League, you know, things like that. But basically think about big projects. Wembley's a good one there, and the Scottish Parliament building. Things that have got legal ramifications attached to them to give you focus on what to do. Okay, so the structure, as I kind of mentioned in the marking scheme, an introduction, approximately 5 minutes, 15-20 minutes of main discussion, probably divided into themes and topics, 5 minutes to conclude, and include a list of references. Now you could just have a slide of the references at the back. You don't need to go through line by line what each reference is, but we want to see evidence that you've done some research in there. So it might be a good idea to work on specific sections each. So you may decide that 1 or 2 of you work on the introduction, 1 or 2 of you focus on the topic, particularly if somebody is very knowledgeable about a topic. One of the final year students is working on the Scottish Parliament project as part of a case study for their exam, and the amount of information this student has got is fantastic, and they're very knowledgeable on the subject. they might be the better person to discuss that in the main body of your presentation. Okay, but it's important that you are clear in terms of who's doing what, avoid rework, and assign responsibilities and accountability. So if someone on your team unfortunately does fall ill, do you have plan B? Can someone pick that bit up and we can work around that? Okay. So end of this week, this session, I call it this week, basically what you need to do as a team is narrow down your options to either 2 or 3 projects which you'd like to choose, and have one specific project that you are using. And you can use the Padlet board if you want to have a bit of discussion. If you click on the comment button on the right hand side, you can set up those different things. Might be worth as well you all actually setting up an account on Padlet, because I noticed that when you're uploading your work it comes up as anonymous, so I'm unable to actually contact you individually if one of you has put something that was really incorrect and I needed to contact you to kind of point you in the right directions. It's up to you. I don't want to bombard you with lots and lots of accounts, but if you do that, you can use your university account, for example. I can then email you directly and contact you directly, and it puts just that little bit of a personal touch on it. Okay. Would like to have identify the area of responsibility in your group members. So during this week and next week, have a rough idea and use the comments again on who's going to do what at this moment in time, and try and come up with a plan on how you intend to coordinate working over Easter and remotely. So feed this information back to me just so I've got one eye on how well you're doing. If you come into any issues, I don't want to have to deal with them on something like the 27th of April when we've only got a couple of days to get it right before you actually present. We'll keep ourselves in the loop. Use the Padlet board. You've got my email address, and it's a case of just working through it. Okay, and what I'll try and do with the Padlet board is have checkpoints where we can have a check-in. So maybe as a team we could even have a team Skype perhaps, or a Microsoft Teams meeting, just for you to kind of let off some steam or ask any questions. But as you know, as I mentioned, it's very ambiguous, that question. So you really need to have a good chat amongst yourselves and figure out what you need to do. And then come back to me if you've got any concerns or issues. Okay. But your biggest challenge, and it's unique to any other group that's done this, studied this module in the past, is that remote working and recording. And it may well become a feature of this module in the future. But as you are aware with project management, we have to adapt to change, we have to adapt to changes in circumstances, so we feel it's a good opportunity to try new skills. You'll also in the future probably part of a virtual project team where you may be working with people in different factories, different organisations. Look, a company size of BE, you've got different organisations within the business. You may well have to work like this, and in this current state of affairs we are actually being forced and encouraged to work from home because of the circumstances. So in a way it'll be a good experience for you going forward as a project manager to have these skills in your arsenal for future projects. So give it your best stab, best job at it, and hopefully you'll be able to get good marks and produce good presentations. Okay, so thank you for listening. I know it's a lot shorter and it's a lot briefer than the previous ones, but have a look at the assignment brief, discuss the logistics of this project, and then come back to me with any questions that you've got. And between now and the 30th of April we can have a couple of drop-in Skype sessions, or I keep saying Skype, I'm using Microsoft Teams now, and clarify any issues that you've got. Thank you.